Hi, this is Laura Live. Sorry I had to abandon the last broadcast. I had really bad reception and wouldn't let me go. So here we are again. Now, I recently posted an article. It was a study done by a very well-known researcher at the University of Connecticut that wanted to see why some children lose their autism diagnosis. And she studied, I think, about, around 100 kids, maybe a little more. And she saw, maybe it was 150, that 18 to 20% of them who had an autism diagnosis when they were little, by the time they got into elementary school or middle school, had lost the diagnosis. And she wanted to know why. What did those kids have in common? And what she found is that they had all had early intensive ABA. That's the one thing that they had in common. Now, lots of kids who have early intensive ABA do not lose their diagnosis. Only 18% did, so it wasn't. But this article set off an absolute fury on the Gemiini Facebook page about people furious that we would dare to use the word recover. First off, it wasn't our word; it was what the researchers used in their study. And it's touched a nerve with so many people. I just want to go in and just hit on it more. That's who I am. I do things like that. Why does this why do people have such strong feelings both ways that it's impossible to recover, you shouldn't want to recover, or you can recover and you should be shooting for that? I mean, the emotions on this are not even. They are very polarized. And let's talk about the words, first of all, the word recover. I never really understood why anybody would use the word recover before, because my children were born with autism. And I never understood, how can you recover from something you're born with? Recover has the word re in it, which means go back. Go back to what? Go back before you were born? That doesn't make any sense to me. Why would you even use that word? And I used to say, I don't like the word. I used to say it all the time. I hate that word for autism. It doesn't make any sense. Until I got just pretty much raked over the coals by a whole bunch of parents whose kids were typically developing, and then somewhere around 2 years old, they lost all their skills, and they have the regressive form of autism. And they have videos of the kids talking, hugging, laughing, and their expression on their face and everything. And you can just see over time, or sometimes it's really quick, sometimes it's been a few days, or sometimes it's over a few weeks or a few months, where the kids just simply change so dramatically that the parents feel like they lost their child. And they often talk about how it feels. They're going through the same emotional grief as if their child were died. Because this child that's left is nothing at all the same personality or anything that the one that was there just a few weeks ago. And for them, the word recover is very important. They want to go back to their child before whatever this event was that caused him to lose all of his skills. They want to recover him. That makes sense to me. And I am not going to look at anybody's face and say, you shouldn't want that. What? They are human beings. Of course they want that. Of course they want the child who was independent and loved them and cuddly and so connected. And there's what they say, an empty shell of a child who has no connection. How could you possibly look at a parent and say, you shouldn't want that for your child? You shouldn't want that for your family. For heaven's sakes, they're human beings. And it took me a long time to understand this, because that was not my experience. My kids did not regress. So either way, if you use the word recover, you tend to, so the people who are not used to this community are thinking, well, what's wrong with the word recover? Well, there are a lot of people who think that you should not treat autism, that autism is just another way of thinking, and that we need to accept it the way it is. And the idea that you recover from something that there's nothing wrong with is very distasteful and abhorrent and even evil. And I totally understand that. And that works really well if you have high functioning autism, like my kids now, or especially Max, HFA. So you're all of the really cool things that are associated with someone who has HFA. They're really detail oriented, and they can focus for a long time, and they have incredible passions about things that most people don't have passions on. So these people are going to be able to solve the world's problems because they'll focus on things that we just kind of ignore. I mean, they have so much to give to society. They're wonderful. They're everybody's favorite. They're just amazing. They're not the life of the party. They're not super social. They're not going to host any talk shows, but that's not what they do. So, why would you want, my son, Max, I would not want to recover him, that he may lose some of the coolest things about him that everybody loves and I love and that he loves. So I don't want to recover that. But the thing is that we tend to be talking about two different things when we're talking about the term recover. We're talking and people who complain about it who are autistic are high functioning. And they have language and they can type and they're amazing. And they're say, hey, I don't want to change me. I don't want to lose my autism. This is who I am. And these are these wonderful things about me. And nobody's talking about you. When you're talking to these parents who feel like they lost their child and this child now is very low functioning, does not understand, has no connection, is lost in their own world at the time, will be institutionalized, will never be able to live or to be independent or to determine their own destiny or determine their own life. That's a very different thing than someone who's high functioning, and like my son Max. So my son Max is called indistinguishable from his peers. Both my twins now are indistinguishable from their peers. They are not neurotypical. They did not recover from autism. First of all, they were always autistic. They're now just so high functioning that normally a typical person talking to them would not know that they're autistic. It takes some time to talk to them to know their quirky things. And that now is more just, this is personality. And if you know the whole background of autism and high functioning autism and Aspergers and everything, you can say, oh, those are typical personality traits for someone with autism. Nobody knows these. Very few people know this. Heck, that whole movie, Napoleon Dynamite, that everybody loves, every single person in that movie has got Aspergers. Every single one. And anybody who is in for the community, we're laughing because we know that, and we think it's a riot. And we know people just like that, and it's so funny. But everybody else enjoyed the movie too, not knowing that these people have Asperger's. There's not one single time they say it in the movie. In fact, when I bring it up to someone, they'll say, "You're Napoleon Dynamite." All the characters, those Asperger's. Well, see, they say, "Well, they're funny." Yeah, they're a riot. It's fun. They're funny. That's not, and they're smart, and it's not autism. That's why I hate that we got rid of Asperger's, that we call everything autism, because they are completely different things. If you have someone who doesn't understand language, is not toilet trained, is self-injurious, and living in an institution, they should not be in the same buckets, or whatever you want to call it, as Napoleon Dynamite. And we've got them in the same bucket. And talking about recovery from autism, when someone, imagine if that's your son in the institution and someone says, how dare you want to recover your son? You get pretty pissed off. And I've seen parents get really angry when you say, oh, yeah, I want to recover my son. I don't want him living in an institution. I don't want him hurting himself. I want him to be happy. I want him to be independent. Yeah, they get pissed off when you disparage the idea of recovery. The people who are like Napoleon Dynamite and my son Max get equally pissed off because they think there's nothing wrong with them, and they're right. So the problem is we're talking about two different things, and we're really angry at each other, and we need to stop and say, wait a minute, okay, everybody has good intentions, everybody has common sense. We need to that's why I think we need to start using different words for these different conditions so that we all can get along and find the same thing. And my eyes are turning red. I can see it because it's really bright out here. I'm not crying. Sometimes I cry, but I'm not crying right now. It's just really, really bright. And I'm actually sitting in my car again because my 7th child is doing Gemiini in the house, and it's really loud. And he's learning his reading word, so all you hear is, well, went. And it's too loud to do Laura live. So, I'm, hi, Renata. I get frustrated, not with either one of these groups, but with the idea that we can't really figure out that we're talking about two different things and we can't support each other. We need to support each other. The parents who lost their child, who really feel like their child is dead. And that may be a terrible thing to say. It may be a terrible thing to say that you have an autistic child and you feel like he's dead. I didn't feel like that with my kids because they were always this way. But these parents really feel this way. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of parents feel this way, and to deny them their valid feelings, their grief, is insensitive and cruel. Hopefully, their child will recover enough of their function so that they can be like my son, like my daughter, so they can be indistinguishable from their peers to a normal person who does not know Asperger's. I mean, is Napoleon Dynamite indistinguishable from his peers? Yeah, he is. He has Asperger's. Is he indistinguishable from his peers to a person who is trained in diagnosis? No, he knows right away he has Asperger's. You know, and we need to be really much more sensitive. I especially, because I tend to be very insensitive because I'm just so matter of fact, this is the way it is, let's go for it. You know, crying's not going to change anything, and it's a terrible thing. I got to stop doing that. Because if you lost your child, and it's the same, you know, there's already been research done that a mother of an autistic child, has the same cortisol levels, the same stress level as someone who is in combat, okay? And that's just autism, much less, I don't think there could be anything worse than regressive autism, because the guilt you must feel, it's invalid guilt. The guilt should not be, I mean, it is valid. Your feelings are valid, but you should not feel the guilt. It is not your fault. It's not your fault. But you feel like it's your fault, I'm sure. And all these moms say, I should have done this, I should have done that. I love being able to talk to them because I'll say, you know, I did that. I did everything that you think you should have done, and my kids are still autistic. So don't, and I know hundreds of people who did all of the things that you think you should have done, and their kids are still autistic. So do not blame yourself. There's no way you should be blaming yourself. We don't know, you know, why. But those feelings and the wanting to get your child back is a valid feeling that we need to honor as a community. That the idea of recovery for those parents needs to be validated. Now, for high-functioning people, we need to make the difference right away that we're not talking about you. We love you. You're awesome. You can just keep on keeping on. We don't want to change anything about you. You're going to rock this world and change it because there's more and more of you all the time. And because of therapy and because of new ways of thinking about things, because things like Napoleon Dynamite and Big Bang Theory, we now can appreciate the your contribution to society and what you're going to do for this world. We're not talking about recovery. We're talking about the severely autistic person who's miserable, self-injurious in an institution. Okay? They're two different things here. And I think because we use the same word, we really need to go back to saying Asperger's and severe autism. And maybe we went the completely wrong way with the DSM, completely wrong. We need to make more different gradations. We need to say, you know, what is it called when you are self-injurious, have no language, and are institutionalized? That needs to be called something so that when we're talking about it, we know that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about Asperger's. Now, let's talk about this recovery thing. Is it possible? It's a neurological condition. Can you actually get your child back that you had when he was 1.5 years old? Or was he autistic then? You know, we don't really know, but there's a lot of videos out there I've seen from parents who you see a neurotypical 2-year-old and a very autistic 3-year-old, and that kid changed dramatically. So obviously there's something going on. Lots of people think that through biomedical interventions, through diet, through therapy, you can regain some of the brain function that was going on before whatever the event was that caused the trauma or whatever it was. We don't know. And they have proof. The problem is right now is a lot of people whether they have good intentions or not, depending on who you talk to, are pushing so many biomedical interventions that tend to be kind of quacky. And so there's just this huge amount of them, and people are spending so much money and not seeing results. I did that. I took my kids to swim with dolphins. We went halfway the country to put them through a giant magnet. I spent $5,000 on secretin. And at that time in my life, I had the money to spend on all this stuff. Nothing worked. Nothing had any effect. I'll tell you right now what had an effect was a gluten-free, casein-free diet, Gemiini, and the PRT, sunrise, floor time therapy, whatever. We did everything. All that therapy. That had a big effect. And the Gemiini was just for input, and the therapy was just constantly generalization and keeping them distracted from their inner world so they were constantly active and engaged with people around them. That and the diet. They did neurofeedback. That seemed, I think I saw something from that, but it wasn't huge as much as those other two things. And that's why when people who get the new diagnosis, I just tell them stick with diet and Gemiini and therapy. Whether it doesn't really matter, just whether you're doing, just make sure the therapist is really kind and really empathetic and sweet, and the kids like them. Because if you have a therapist there, it doesn't matter whether they're doing floor time, RDI, ABA, PRT, sunrise. All of those are distracting him from his inner world. And as long as he likes it and he likes the person and he's not running away screaming from the person, because the input part of therapy that they used to do with flashcards, that's boring and horrible. And I used to tell kids, just suck it up. You got to do it, But you don't have to suck it up anymore because you have video and you can put it on the car. You can put it while they're eating. And so it's pretty neutral. They're just eating and watching it. It's fun. So therapy now should be fun. It should be engaging because they're not just doing boring input. They're really doing a lot of generalization. So anyway, back to the subject of recovery. I think we need to all get over ourselves. We need to get over ourselves and think about it as two different things. And we need to, as a community, maybe we just start talking about and say, instead of recovery from autism, say recovery from severe self-injurious autism or something like that. Something because I would never, I would never change my kids. They are amazing, and their quirkiness is part of their personality. They're charming, very charming, and love them. But they are not recovered. I would never. I'd say this to a person. What I mean by normal, for a person who's not used to spending a lot of time with people who are Aspergers, people who are high functioning AFA, HFA, people who don't diagnose. If you put my kids in front of someone who's diagnosed, they could tell right away. I could tell right away that, remind me a little bit of Napoleon Dynamite. Yeah. In fact, a lot of my children have friends, and they like my child's 21st birthday party, lots of friends around the party. And I talk to each one within 2 minutes. Yep. They're all on the spectrum, completely undiagnosed and hilarious, and we had the best time ever. But my son was on the spectrum, and all of his friends were on the spectrum, and they didn't even know they were on the spectrum. They were just very high functioning, super nerdy kind of, Big Bang Theory kind of guys. They're great. They're awesome. Love them. They don't need to be recovered from anything. That's their personality. They're wonderful. I'm not talking about that. Anyway, I just want people to be kind to each other. I want people to be respectful of other people's severe grief. I want people to be respectful of other people's insecurity about people trying to judge them, because everybody's always talking about kill autism, cure autism, defeat autism. And when we say those words, we're talking about the low-functioning, serious, severe, self-injurious kind of thing. We're not talking about the Napoleon Dynamites of the world. But it after a while, if you're autistic on the spectrum, you're kind of pissed off too. Like, there's nothing wrong with me. I don't need to be defeated or cured. I'm fine. Thank you very much. I get it. I totally get it. But somehow we need to be able to think, they're not talking about me. In fact, they want their goal, In fact, I'm going to start to cry. I know I will start to cry. Their goal, the people who are talking about defeating and curing, their goal is that their child is me. If I'm someone with high functioning autism, I am the goal. I am the ultimate aspiration of every parent who has a child with autism, is me, is you. You functioning person, you Asperger person, you are the goal. That's what we want for our kids, is you. We don't want to recover you or cure you or do anything to you. We love you. And so that's where we need to just really understand and have empathy for the parents. And the parents have to know when they say things like that, there are other people listening who it could hurt their feelings. And you have to make, I hope that someday my son is Napoleon Dynamite. Someday I will be so happy if my son could be Napoleon Dynamite. Okay, so I'm going to take some of these questions. Completely agree. The spectrum is too vast. My child is nonverbal and I get frustrated with people who think she's the same as high functioning kids. Yeah, Gemma, we just got to get over ourselves. My child is 3 and nonverbal. However, he understands everything we say and does what we ask him. I consider him high functioning. Oh yeah, if he understands, there are a lot of high functioning people who type. They have apraxia. It's different than autism. I mean, mutism has been around since way before the autism epidemic. It's been around forever. So actually, Kelly, if you're using Gemiini, we have an apraxia protocol that will really help him with verbal speech. And he needs to start to read as soon as possible. So that's what I say. For kids who understand everything, they need to start using Gemiini, the reading program, the Quick Start Reading. My son, Max, started to understand, but he still wasn't talking, only if we forced him. Like, we'd ask him, what is this? He talked, but he wouldn't offer it up. He would not talk until he started to read. We taught him to read when he was 4. And by reading is what got him to talk. So even though he didn't have apraxia. He could. We thought at first they thought he did, but he didn't. From Gemiini, he got over that. But he just didn't want to talk until he started to read. So I would really suggest that. And that the reading program really helps with apraxia too and articulation, because it has lots of slow articulation of the mouth. It's super boring, so you may want to edit it and put in some little fun, like little Luke videos in the reading program. It's 25 weeks, I think. It may take 3 years to get through it if you do it slower, but it'll be really good. I completely agree with you that the DSM needs to be changed so we can have a clear understanding of where our kids are at. The spectrum is too big, even in the realm of high functioning. Yep, it is. We have people at a lower and higher end. It gets confusing for those who are not educated in the field. Yeah. And it gets hurtful for some people on both ends too. It's hurtful to the parents, it's hurtful to the people that are high functioning. The Napoleon level would be amazing to reach. Exactly, Chris. That's what we want. That's what we want. We all want Napoleon Dynamite. And I'm so blessed because I got my own Napoleon. I watched that movie the first time and I was laughing so hard, and all I were laughing so hard because it was Max. Oh my gosh. Although, see, Max, a little bit higher than sometimes lower funny, but he is, I still think about him, he is the most incredibly kind, sweet. Talk about people don't having empathy. Oh my gosh. The level of empathy that Max has is beyond human. I have never seen anybody so empathic, and he clearly deeply pained at other people's pain. He feels their pain, and he is the most sweet, wonderful big brother to little Luke. He is inseparable from little Luke. He takes far better care of them than I do. He will sense danger. Talking about people who are like autistic people who are not clued in with their society, their environment or whatever. He will spot a 4-year-old a mile away and point it out and redirect. He has his kid radar on better than any parent I've ever seen in my life. So he breaks so many stereotypes, and I would not want to change him for anything. He still has some social anxiety a little bit, depending on the situation, and that hurts him. I would like to change that. And let's, first off, before I go, that's this idea of I never want to change my kids. Of course we all want to change. We all want to improve. That's why we make New Year's resolutions. I want to change me. I want to get in better shape. I want to be more empathetic. I want to be smarter. I want to have a better memory. After menopause, my memory is shot. I want to recover my memory. You know, I want to improve. I want all my children to improve. Everybody wants to improve. we have to get over the idea that changing is bad. It can be bad if you go backwards. Change is good. It should be good. We should all be wanting to improve. I mean, even if you're a Christian, even Jesus said, be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. He wants us to improve. So if Jesus wants me to improve, I'm not going to tell anybody they shouldn't improve. We all want to change. So I think we get over this whole thing. I hate every time I see that, I'd never want my child to change. What? I want my child, all my children, all my relatives, everybody in the world, I want them to change. I want them to improve. Everything. Okay, at the end of the day, we all just want what's best for our children. Exactly. We want them to be happy. And I know children who live in institutions. They are beautiful homes. The children, they're now adults. They are happy. They have things to do all day long. I went to an incredible institution in Spain this last summer for people who have adults with autism, all levels of functionality, some very low functioning, some very high functioning. Everybody was very happy. They have the community there. They have friends. They communicate sometimes through pecs or some just laughing. They have things that they do. They had a garden. They did stuff all the time. They had no worries, no bills, none of the worries of life that, us adults, independent adults have. They were happy, and it was a beautiful location, a beautiful facility, wonderful people around them. Heck, like you say, we want all of our children to be happy. They were happy. They're a lot happier than a lot of neurotypical people I know. So just because you're living in an institution does not mean you're not happy. But if you are self-injurious, and if you're going through anguish, and if you're crying, and if you're in pain, and you can't tell anybody, that sucks. I'm sorry. That's just not good. We don't want any of our kids to have that. And I actually had to make friends with the whole idea of institution after I went and looked at a few of them and saw the differences between them and the difference of the people in them. I want Gemiini in every institution in the world where you have people who are so frustrated that they're self-injurious. I want them to be able to communicate. And this is why I'm so freaked out and crazy about people who stop Gemiini because their kids aren't talking. They may not. I'm losing. Oh, I take them back now. Okay. To teach someone to read, to write, to understand without Gemiini is very time consuming and incredibly expensive if you're on the low end of the spectrum. With Gemiini is very affordable and super easy and doesn't take very much time. So if you're going to have a nonverbal person, which you may, non-vocal verbal, they may not talk. They're not, 3% of the people who use Gemiini we think may never have very complicated speech, may be able to say yes, no, but because of their apraxia, that's so severe. Those people need to be able to write a beautiful fluid cursive so they feel, so when they write, people say, oh, you're writing so beautiful. They need to be, that is their speech. Their writing is their voice. Make it be stunning. Make their cursive writing look like the founding fathers of the Constitution. And you could do that with Gemiini. That's them. That's their expression. They should be able to write everything that's in their head. They will never be self-injurious. They will never be locked in their body. They will never feel, they'll be able to, like I said before, they can work for me because most of the people that work with me never open their mouths. They're all typing. They're all on their computers because they're coders or they're editors, and they chat. They don't even talk to each other. I could have a whole company filled with people who have apraxia. But don't stop Gemiini just because he's not talking. I can't tell you how many people I said to stop Gemiini. Why? We tried it for a few months, didn't talk. Did you test him receptively? What does receptive mean? Did you test him so that you could see if he was understanding what he was teaching? Oh, the answer is, oh yeah, he understood everything. Then why did you stop is my first look on my face. Or, no, we didn't test. Test. Find out they're learning something. They have to learn to read, to write, to understand complicated things like adroit and evasive and big words. They need to be able to write big words, to be able to use big words in writing. Don't stop Gemiini just because they're not talking. In fact, if they're not talking, that's the number one reason why they need it even more. Even more. Is apraxia different than autism? Kelly, Yes. Apraxia is a completely different thing than autism. It just so happens that a lot of people who have brain differences, let's say Down syndrome, traumatic brain injury, autism, also stroke, also happen to have apraxia, that the brain difference caused the apraxia too, but it doesn't have to cause the apraxia. There are some people who have had stroke and they have perfect use of language, but they can't move their left arm. It hit a different part of their brain. There are some people who have autism who are so articulate, and these are, again, high-functioning people, but they don't have social skills, and they have the other things that evolve. Apraxia is a disconnection between what's in your brain and your mouth, so that you can't say what's in your head, what you want to say. You know what you want to say. You understand everything, but it can't come out of your mouth. And we have found, actually, with the initial research with stroke victims, that with 8,000 to 10,000 repetitions, you can regain movement in your mouth, in your body, wherever. The only way you can do repetitions with your mouth is by watching somebody else do it. So that's why we have the close-ups of the mouth with Gemiini. And by watching someone else's mouth move slowly and doing that X-ray thing that we have, you trick the viewer's brain into thinking that they themselves are moving their mouth, and they themselves are speaking. And after they've watched it 8,000 to 10,000 times, they start to talk. And it could take another 8,000 to 10,000 times for the next, well, like it's 10,000 times for the first word, 8,000 times for the second word, 6,000 times for the third word. And if you're in traditional live therapy, you've given up before you even reach the 10,000. Say it's not possible. If you're using Gemiini, you may have done 10,000 and got one word, and it's like a year later because you're only using it 5 minutes a day, and you just think, oh, this is never going to happen. Well, actually, you just didn't watch it enough. Literally, for 10,000 times, you may have to watch it 2 hours a day. But it's going to get easier and easier and easier as that brain comes along. And we know now that some people watch Gemiini for over a year before they got the kid's first word, and 6 months later, he's got 500 words. It happens. And so that's why I talk about this ad nauseum. I'm like hitting it with a hammer. Just apraxia is treatable with Gemiini. Is treatable. And you just need more. So the people who say their kids weren't talking with Gemiini are the people who need it. Not only do they need it more, but they need it more often. They're the ones who need it the most. That's why it's so frustrating for me when people quit for that reason. And when I ask them it wasn't working, what do you mean it wasn't working? Let's sit down and figure this out. I think I've talked to 2 people of the thousands of people who've used Gemiini who actually had a legitimate reason for stopping using Gemiini. One of them, I can remember, her son had severe epilepsy, was in hundreds of seizures every day, was in the hospital, and was only sort of awake and with their parents for a few moments. She didn't want him watching Gemiini. She wanted because he may not be with us very much longer. Oh yeah, stop. Not only stop, but I refunded her all the money that she paid, because that's not something you want him to be doing. You want him to be with his family. Then that was a very good reason to stop. There was another one too, but I can't remember what it was right now. But that one stayed in my mind. My 16-year-old daughter has Down syndrome. I would say she has autism and apraxia too. I'm getting her on Gemiini ASAP. Great, Chris. Yeah. There's lots of kids with autism, with that triple diagnosis of apraxia, Down syndrome, and autism, and the parents know they have a triple diagnosis, but nobody will give them that, which is also frustrating. They'll say, oh, it's just part of Down syndrome. No, it's not. If you've seen these amazing kids with Down syndrome who are eloquent and funny and they're talking and they don't have apraxia and they're not autistic, they're super social. So it's not. They're 3 different things, and sometimes you can have all 3. And they have to be treated as if you have all 3. So you make sure you do Gemiini has an apraxia protocol, and you schedule a call with one of our specialists so that they can show you how to do it and what it is. I can talk about it right here, but I've talked about it so many times. Actually, if you go back in the Laura Lives and you look for the ones I talk about apraxia, you can watch those, and I really get into it there. What is the cost of Gemiini? Rose. Gemiini is $98 a month for unlimited use, and we also have scholarships for people who need help. So there's no such thing as not being able to afford Gemiini, because we give you scholarship if you can't afford it. And we're not one of those things where you get the silver, the bronze, the gold level where you get different products. No, I want everybody to have the same great product. There's no point in me giving you a, excuse my French, crappy tool. I want you to have the best there is. And if you can't afford it, I'm going to make sure you can afford it, but still get the best tool. So you just fill out the scholarship thing if you can't afford it, and tell us, and we'll put you on a scholarship that's affordable. Everybody can afford it. And, you know, most people, lots of people who laugh, because sometimes you hear on Facebook, they'll say, I would love to do Gemini, but it's so expensive. First of all, they don't know that we have scholarships. Secondly, $98 a month for unlimited therapy, because all of us who actually had to pay for live therapy, thousands and thousands, we're just thinking, you know what, my cable bill is $120 a month. My phone bill is more than that. That's really cheap. But, you know, if you don't have it, you don't have it. I've been there. You know, our family's had up and downs with the economy and the real estate debacle that happened in 2008. I've been there. I know what it's like not to be able to afford $98 a month. Absolutely. And that's why we have scholarships. So just apply. All right. I've been going on. This is a very emotional Lorelei in my car. So, and anytime you see and you're commenting anywhere where people are talking about recovery and they're beating each other up, we need to have some sort of a truce that we call. So the high functioning people who have hit a nerve know that we're not talking about them. And the parents who feel like they lost their child know that we are talking about them. And not think of it as, not be so divisive. This whole community is too divisive. We need to all be on the same page. It's just in all of the different, you know, camps as far as what kind of therapy, what they do. And there is something, many people don't know, there's something called the Autism Wars. It's that bad. It's that bad. And I love when I was on that TV with that internet show, I think it's Autism Live. The narrator, the host of the show, said that Gemini is the UN of autism, and that's what we really want to be. We want to be completely neutral. That it's just a tool that no matter what your beliefs on what any of the different aspects of treatment or philosophies, that it's a tool for everybody to use. You know, kind of not part of the wars. We're Switzerland. Switzerland. I should do my live with a big red cross on my shirt. All right. That will take and pass this on to anybody who's having trouble with the word recovery. I'll see you on Wednesday.